long enough, and if you're fortunate, right? Because apparently age does not necessarily guarantee you wisdom, right? Um, but you're supposed to. You're supposed to gather some level of wisdom per the age that you're at, right? Courtesy of the years that you've lived. And if you live long enough, you start to observe a few things about life, right? You'd always I'd always look at my grandparents, and they always had this weird far off stare, right? That 1,000 yard stare. Sorry, I'm in a parking lot. Lot of movement, and you'd find them just kind of sometimes just sitting there and just staring into the distance. And I think it's in those moments when they were just comprehending life. They were observing it, making sense of it, right? And if you live long enough, you start to see certain things, question certain things, right? Because when we're younger, we just run with gusto at everything that we believe or we've assimilated. And then now and again, you come across a little bit of, wisdom or a question that really has you picking at the seams of, what you thought is yourself, or what you come to believe is part of you, who you are, your story. And one such piece of wisdom was a post that someone in my circle had posted on WhatsApp in the status, and it said, "Is your love language, right? Your love language, is it linked to things you never received in your childhood?" You would think like something like that would kind of like roll over you, and this one kind of stuck, and it's been stuck. It's been there for a good 2 months now, right? Is your love language linked to things you never received in your childhood? And I thought, gee, but it's okay. I love my brain, but sometimes it is my worst enemy. But in any case, it went to work. And it said, okay, one of our love languages is that we love to serve, right? Acts of service. And I thought, that's a great thing, right? And I'm pretty solid on that, right? And I get a kick out of it, and I do. I love serving. Don't get me wrong. Then I had a moment. This is back when we lived in the Val area. And what I'm about to say is, it's not a reflection of my parents' parenting skills, but, because parents are humans, by the way, and I love my mom and dad. But I remember growing up as a kid, and this was all on me, by the way. For some odd reason, I was convinced that I would be loved more if I did things. If I washed stuff, and if I did my chores excellently. If I was one particular thing I remember that I struggled with was school, right? More specifically mathematics, and my dad's a mathematics lecturer and tutor. You can imagine the shock and the like, my God, your dad teaches us to do maths and you can't even crack it. Which is also, I feel like it's a bit of a divine comedy of life, right? Like, you're going to be an amazing maths tutor, and then your kid's going to struggle with it, and you're like, God, come on. What the hell's this, right? And I remember just being so driven to this is so awkward, but the taxi full of people just drove past in front of me, and they're all just looking at me, and I'm like, I'm on show. It's showtime. Okay, sorry about that. Ran out of space. I'm trying to find my train of thought now. But speaking about your love language, right? How I was always performing, because I thought if I do the song and dance, right, which by the way had nothing to do with my parents, but it was just how I was perceiving life, how I was experiencing life, and that the more I achieve, the more excitement there seems to be in the house. And we do that, right? We learn, as human beings, that's what we do. We adapt, and that became a thing. That became my superpower, right? If I can do things for other people, that brings them great joy. And somewhere along the line, I guess I made that one of my love languages. acts of service, right? And I love coming through for people, right? I love serving, don't get me wrong. But it kind of posed a question to me that are we brave enough to question ourselves, the way that we are, the way that we think, the things that we think, this is who I am. Ever ask yourself, when did you become who you are today? Like, at what point did you become this person that you are today? There are certain things that you mark yourself with: love language, acts of service, right? Words of affirmation, right? If you've been around me long enough, you'll know that one of the things that I am awkward about, but I absolutely love doing, is compliments. I'm very awkward around compliments. Like, they get to me, right? And it's weird because in the back of my head, they're like, I don't know if I've earned these words, right? And that's an honest review of myself, and this is just me being honest about the kind of person that I am. There are days when I struggle with compliments and words of affirmation, because in the back of my head, they're like, you haven't done the song and dance to get these. You haven't earned these words. Which is crazy, because that very same quirk, and I'm going to call it a quirk to be kind to myself, it's actually not a very healthy thing to have, right? That you've got to earn everything, which also, funny enough, on the other end, in the other hand, that's a good thing. The fact that you're not owed everything, you're not owed anything, right? You've got to earn it, and I love that. I come from a family of people who earn, like, who have earned the things that they have. They work hard. One of the most, biggest lessons that I learned from my mom and dad was that you've got to do it yourself, right? Never be afraid to roll up your sleeves and do it yourself, right? Like, my dad is a firm believer in people can do it themselves, right? Like, he gets frustrated when people are like, something will happen and immediately people will throw up their arms and be like, oh, government must come and help us. That grinds him. Like, I can physically see it. Just he's just like, the government did not give birth to you. Actually, my mom says that the government gave birth to no one, therefore stop looking at the government so the government is your parent. They're not. The government is not your parent. It's just a bunch of people who administrate. We're hoping, right, and sometimes we're greatly disappointed, but we wish they would administrate the resources that have been made available to them, right, instead of buying mansions and whatnot, and building fire pools. But I'm being nasty now, but I'm actually not being nasty, I'm actually being very honest. It's crazy how, on the one hand, what can be perceived as a good trait about you can also come from a place of lack and need, right? From not such a good place, right? In my head, I perceived as a kid, if I do the song and dance, I will be loved. Therefore, we must do things. We must be about doing things, right? And that's a great thing when they're like, oh, this kid is such a hard worker, man. Look at him. He just keeps going. No, it's from a place of, yeah, if I do stuff, they will love me, right? If I come through for people, I will be loved. Versus I am loved. First and foremost by myself, right? First and foremost by God, myself, and then people. Like, if you can tier it, I'm trying to get to that level where I can put it in those tiers. I understand that I'm loved by God, that I love myself, and then other people, right? But most of the time it's the other way around, right? Gotta get people to love me. Do I love me? And I don't know about God. I haven't done 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's a slippery slope. So that was just a thought. What if your love language is linked to the things that you never got in your childhood, right? Oh, I love gifting. What if that is stemming from a place of I never got anything, therefore I feel owed that, or I feel that is a void that must be filled, right? Some of us gift other people from a void, right? Because I never got anything, I'm gonna gift everybody, right? And it's a weird thing, because then people that are around you, they experience it as, yo, this person is so generous, guys. Meanwhile, you are trying to fill the void where there was no gifts given to you, whether it be affection or material things. you're trying to fill that by giving it to other people. You're trying to, in a weird way, you're trying to take the position of power where the person that you expected the gifts from didn't do the gifting, therefore you are not going to fall victim to that ever again, and so you assume their position and you distribute the gifts. It's an interesting one. You live long enough and you start, if you're fortunate, and I say fortunate because there are people who, for them, another day is another ball of string that they are meeting out from the ball, this giant ball of string that they've been given, that is called life. They're just meeting out another length of string, and that's it, right? Tomorrow comes, we're alive, okay, we're alive again, we're alive again. No. And then there are those of us who burden ourselves with these questions, and we must burden ourselves with them, right? Because fundamentally, I believe one of the things that makes us these magnificent creatures as human beings is the ability to perceive ourselves, to see ourselves, right? And to then question why we are the way that we are. Can you remember who you are, who you were before you were this person? Because it's a crazy thing when you go back in history, like, oh, over time there were these shifts that happened. For instance, I grew up super optimistic, like almost borderline annoying optimistic, positive. Am I pessimistic? No. I think I'm a little bit more leveled. There are days when I kind of bored, I kind of canter, or the pendulum swings to the more pessimistic, and I'm just like, let's bring it back, right? I always joke around, and I say joke, but there's always a little bit of truth in what is said in jest. I joke with my friends and I say I'm entering my villain phase, right? I find villains fascinating, by the way. I think one day we're going to speak about that, right? And all of you, I think I might start a support group for the villain lovers support group, right? Like, why we gravitate towards villains, right? Why do we love them so much, right? When the Black Panther series came out, the first movie, I am sorry, yes, T'Challa is an amazing, Chadwick Boseman played an amazing character, but I was on Team Killmonger. I was with the bad guys. I don't know, something just Thanos, I understand what he was trying to do, but I digress. Some of us change due to consequence. Things happen to us or due to external forces, and we are who we are now from a place of survival. I had to change so that I could survive that experience, and therefore I am this. Can you remember who you used to be, who you were before the world got a hold of you, before that situation got a hold of you, because before that person happened to you, right? From your personal relationship to your working relationships, to your spiritual relationships, to even your romantic relationships, we've all had situations, things happen to us that have shifted the course of our journey through life within those spheres, right? Can you remember who you were? Remember your first date? Do you remember your first crush? Do you remember your first boyfriend or girlfriend? How were you like? What kind of a partner were you? Versus now. Do the math. Like, look at that person, that first one. I know, for instance, I was overly just romantic and just, right? And now I think I'm a little bit level-headed, right? I understand human beings. So I'm at an interesting place where I allow human beings to be who they are, right? But before I came in and I used to have this view, and I still believe the best about people, by the way, don't get me wrong, but I used to put them on a pedestal and they would fall off, not because they're necessarily bad human beings, but we lift people to heights that they were never meant to be at, dizzying heights, and then we're disappointed when they come tumbling down. They were never meant to be that high up. They're also just figuring this life thing out, just like we get tripped up, right? So now I observe human beings. And I know that sounds like a little bit like a lion out of Silence of the Lambs. I observe human beings, not in a creepy way, but also not in like in a studying. I remember one of my friends said, dude, don't do that, don't study us, experience us, like be with us. And I said, I do try, but there's that weird duality where there will be days, and my friends, I love all of you, but there are days when I will sit in conversation with some of you And there's a moment when I'm in the conversation, we're deep in it, and it's a weird thing. It's almost like there's a shift, and I step out of the conversation and I observe the conversation. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder why you think the way that you think. Or I'm struck by the fact that we think so vastly differently. Like, yes, we have a friendship, and then there's you're like, I wonder how we're friends. You think so differently to me. That's interesting. Why does she think that way? What happened to you? It's a weird thing. And it doesn't help that I'm planning on studying psychology. That's gonna make it even worse. But at the same time, the villain in me is just like, yes, let's do it so we can understand them. Why are you the way that you are? What happened to you? What happened to you? It's an honest question. What happened to you? Do you like who you are? Do you like the way that you are, the way that you think, the way that you reason, the way that you approach things, approach life, other people, the things that you pursue, the vices in your life, right? What happened to you? Just an honest question. For me, even. All stemming from a simple post that said, is it possible that your love language is linked to the things that you never got in your childhood?